Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here today to talk about a company called Pfizer, which is one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. Last year alone, it grossed over $68.7 billion, which is a 38% increase from the year before. Although it may sound dominant and exciting, just one small mistake from an outside effector could bring this company crashing down to the ground. One of those outside effectors being negative publicity some of their drugs receive. One of those drugs being a drug called MGMT, which was a drug that went through several trials in the trial phase. It was publicly known for maximum doses being exceeded, and actually 7 cases of overdosing were reported, and the FDA found out about this, reported it to Pfizer, gave them a warning, and Pfizer went in and said, you know what, we're going to do an investigation, we'll check it out. They went in, did their investigation, turned up some stuff, reported back to the FDA, and the FDA went and did an investigation of their own and found out, you know, more stuff was uncovered that Pfizer wasn't necessarily being honest about. So what does this do? Well, one, it looks terrible in the public eye. Makes Pfizer look like they don't care, they're not trying hard enough, and they're not paying enough attention to detail. And that's just bad news and worry for investors in that company. Another drug, Mylartard, was a leukemia treatment that was released in 2000, was supposed to be very successful. It was rushed to the market. The FDA approved it extremely fast, as well as Pfizer put it out there extremely fast because it was supposed to save numerous lives. The drug was a failure. When combined with chemotherapy, it was found to be more lethal than helpful, actually, and Pfizer immediately had to pull it from the market. Huge blow up, public knew about it all the way across the map. What does this do? Well, another thing, investors are going to be wary of throwing their money at a company that rushes to decisions and don't necessarily think them through. Solutions to some of these problems. Well, increasing money in research down at the base levels and hiring a more sound individual who's going to pay attention to that detail in the labs and doing the research to make sure that these drugs released are efficient and helpful, and they're not going to fail once they get out there at the bigger level on the market and their later stages of trial phases. Pfizer needs to be paying more attention in their labs than they do in getting the drug out into the market. Another thing they could do is just be a little bit more ethical in their decision making, because if you think about it in the long term, releasing a drug like Mylartard, great money maker to Pfizer, thinking about getting it out there fast. Well, maybe there was some thoughts about this might not be a great idea at the time, and if they were to pull it and do a little bit more research before getting it out there, they would have found that, okay, it boosted at the start, but later on down the line, the repercussions were a lot worse than the early on success. Another issue that Pfizer's been facing is the competitive global market. There's so many other pharmaceutical companies out there that are trying to boom and grow as well, and then other companies like Johnson & Johnson that are pretty big name can compete with Pfizer when drugs go generic. They lose that patent that Pfizer originally has out there, and that competitive level is just increasing every day. Pfizer has already had to cut 15% of their workforce to make money to free up funds, basically, to put in other areas of the company to try and compete with these outside vendors. Pfizer's biggest thing is the fact they have so much manpower and research and development that they can bring in a higher frequency of newer drugs to the market and get those patents that the other drug companies can't compete with, and that's what they need to continue to do. So a solution to that, which they've already tried to do, is dumping more money into the research and development department and creating more drugs, as well as bringing about more money and creating more drugs and research. You're also going to make the drugs more efficient because there's that money there to research it. Some problems in this area are Pfizer is having to make a lot of job cuts in the workforce, which doesn't necessarily look good in the public eye and might make investors weary. But at the same time, if there's more money in the research and development department and the drugs are more efficient, then the investors are going to be more likely to invest if they see a long-term success rate. So ultimately, what do we discuss? There are issues affecting Pfizer that is a great company that could be brought down very easily, but at the same time, these issues could be corrected from within the company themselves. More ethical and efficient drugs are going to increase the public opinion, and they're going to increase the public to want to invest into the company Pfizer. Increasing financial and personal attention into the research and development department is also going to create more successful drugs, as well as these life-saving drugs that we so deem necessary. That concludes the topics I've come to discuss. Are there any questions that anybody might have?